welcome back. It's time to gather around the campfire for the next exploration of the Yoga Sutras, part 3, in which we're going to explore the first tools that we have on our journey to help us restrain and calm the mind. But first, a quick recap. So we're just in the first chapter, or pada, of the Yoga Sutras, and so far this is what we've learned. Patanjali, our friend, has said that yoga is the restraint of the fluctuations of the mind stuff. So when we restrain or calm down all the crazy stories in our head, then we experience our true nature, who we really are. Otherwise, we think we're all the crazy thoughts in our head. I like to call them hamsters. Well, then one might ask, well, what are these hamsters? So in our next installment of the sutras, we looked at what the vrittis are, the 5 vrittis. And these are right knowledge. That's when what's in my head is matching what's out here in reality. There is false knowledge or misconception, where what I'm thinking I'm experiencing in my head doesn't match it. This would be like a case of mistaken identity. Hey, Andrea. Oh, shoot, that's not Andrea, or something like that. Then we have imagination, which is where we just create things. It's not based on anything around me, but hey, I can think of it. And then we have sleep, which is different than meditation, even though nothing's going on in our head. And finally, we have memory, which is when we bring to mind all that stuff that we've thought about before, and it pops back into our head. Hey, that's the last vritti. So Patanjali has laid out, hey, yoga happens when you're not being consumed by the vrittis or thinking that you are the vrittis or identifying with all the vrittis. Yoga happens when that is calmed down. So then one might ask, hey, Patanjali, how do I calm these vrittis down? Which is the subject of our next couple of sutras. So Patanjali is super helpful. When we're going down the garden path and thinking like, hey, I'd love to know this, he pops up and goes, hey, here's the thing you wanted to know. So our next sutra, which is Sutra 12, says, these mental modifications, that is, the vrittis, are restrained by practice and non-attachment. Then we might go, well, what does practice and non-attachment mean, Patanjali? And hey, he's going to tell us. What a thoughtful guy. So our first tools, practice and non-attachment. Let's take these one at a time. First, let's start with that word practice, which in Sanskrit is the word abhyasa. So that's practice. Now, I looked at what a few other scholars translated the word abhyasa to mean, and most of them do come to the word practice. But what exactly does practice mean? Practice what? Well, hey, in the next sutra, Patanjali tells us, of these two, that is practice and non-attachment, effort toward steadiness of mind is practice. Effort towards steadiness of mind. Let's take a look at how some other folks might actually translate that. Tireless endeavor is the constant effort to restrain the modifications of the mind. Application. So here's someone who translates it as application rather than practice. Application is the effort toward the state. Practice is effort towards concentration. Of these two, effort towards steadiness of mind is practice. How about Fierstein? Practice is the exertion in gaining stability in that state of restriction. So in other words, everybody, practice is basically just the consistent and steadfast effort to steadying your mind. Okay, so this means that when we notice all those vrittis happening, hamster, 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 that we make an attempt to restrain them and come back to our sense of self. But wait, there's more. In Sutra 114, Patanjali expands on this idea of practice just a little bit more. Thank goodness, because that's not much to go on. Practice becomes firmly grounded. Ooh, we get better at it, yay, when well attended to for a long time, without break, and in all earnestness. Okay, so here are some conditions to help make our practice work. So trying to steady the mind, You have to be well attended to for a long time, has to be consistent, and it has to be earnest. So let's break that down. What exactly does that mean? What does a long time mean? Well, let's keep in mind that the yogis were fans of reincarnation. So for a long time doesn't just mean like for the next 5 minutes or for the next 10 minutes. It means all day, every day for the rest of your life and maybe lives beyond. So first of all, this should give us a little bit of hope because he's not saying, hey guys, you can figure this out just like that. He's saying, no, you have to actually take a long time to practice this, right? This is going to be something that unfolds over years, not minutes, which I think is a little bit of I find that very comforting because I don't know about you, but sometimes meditation, my mind is crazy, crazy, crazy. Sometimes it feels calm, and most of the time somewhere in between. So Patanjali is saying like, this is supposed to take a long time. And the more you do it, the longer you do it, the more grounded you will become in that. The more easy it will be, the easier it will be for you to be able to discern all those stories from who you really are. All right. For a long time, number one. Okay. Without break, he says, without break. So that means, guys, you don't just practice steadying your mind when you're sitting on your meditation cushion. Patanjali's like, no. This is all day, every day, folks, okay? So this means that this is an invitation for us to bring this practice of noticing our mind into our daily lives. We don't just practice our yoga on the mat. Our yoga is off the mat as well when we start to notice ourselves getting caught up in stories or narratives or, thoughts about are we bad, are we good? All of that stuff is just the churnings of the mind, getting caught in the past, projecting into the future. And he's like, hey, that's human, but consistently in your life, see if you can be less in those stories and more in the essence of who you are, in your presence. Maybe watching those stories happen, but not getting caught up in them. All right, so that's number 2, consistent or without break, as Patanjali says. The third component of practice is in all earnestness. So I'm sure you've all experienced this. You go to a yoga class, you're in your yoga practice, and sometimes you're doing Warrior 2 and you're like, kind of like, And then sometimes your Warrior 2 is like, rah. Well, what's the difference between those two things? You might be in exactly the same shape, but in one of those shapes, you've brought your full heart, your devotion, your life energy, you're bringing that to the practice. And Patanjali's saying, hey, that's a key component too. You can't just sort of half-ass it, my friends. No, with earnestness and with devotion. And part of that, I think, is keeping in mind the purpose of why we're practicing in the first place. We're practicing so that we can be more connected to the heart of our true nature, so that we can be connected more to our presence and our being, and less caught up in the narratives and the conditioning of our mind. Because pretty much, everything we think is based on previous experiences we've had. It's based on just kind of like our mind immediately making connection between things and relying on what's happened in the past. And that can get us kind of stuck in a rut. And when we're present, when we're watching our thoughts but not necessarily getting all caught up in them, then there's more possibility. Then we are awake to the world as it is in front of us. Then we can be more attuned to moving from our hearts. So there we go, folks. Those are the 3 components of practice. Okay, practice is for a long time. Keep at it, everybody. It's not going to happen instantaneously. It is consistent. That means we put in effort, hopefully day to day rather than once a month. In fact, all the time, day to day, we notice our thoughts when we're out there in the world. So we take it off the mat and into our lives. And then 3, we do it with a quality of devotion and heartfulness. We bring ourselves to it, and our passion to it, and our spirit to it. So those are the 3 components of Patanjali's practice. Next, let's take a look at what Patanjali means by dispassion or non-attachment. Dispassion is the knowledge of mastery of that yogi who is without thirst for seen and revealed objects. The consciousness of self-mastery in one who is free from craving from objects seen or heard about is non-attachment. Non-attachment is freedom from longing for all objects of desire, either earthly or traditional, either here or hereafter. My gosh, detachment is the deliberate renunciation of desire for objects seen or heard. Whew. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. So non-attachment sometimes can sound a little, I don't know, bad. Does that mean we're not supposed to care about things? Does that mean that we don't worry about what happens in the world? Does that mean I'm not going to be attached to my cat or my child or my friends? Not necessarily, no. But what Patanjali is speaking to is that when we have a craving for things, a desire for things, it pulls us out of the present moment. Okay, in the morning, frankly, I love coffee. In fact, I got a little something here with me right now. I love my warm beverages. And in the morning, when I wake up, my mind is constantly thinking about that. Okay, I'm going to get my coffee now, right? So these kinds of desires, these cravings for things, tend to take us out of the present moment, don't they? So when I'm busy thinking about coffee, I'm not really being present. And if I'm busy craving the shoes or the experience or, the lover or whoever, I'm not really in myself. Usually I'm in the future, imagining things. I'm in the past, remembering things. And my attention is pulled outside of myself. Well, that means that the hamsters are running crazy. So non-attachment is a way of practicing a form of contentment with what is, which allows us to sit in a place of presence rather than to be in a space of yearning. And from my perspective, non-attachment isn't about, cutting off all of our emotional ties to everything around us, because what kind of fun is that, right? But it's about cutting off the stickiness of those ties, You can love someone fully with your heart, but when that love becomes conditional, when it means I need something from you, or I need you to act a certain way, or these things have to line up for me to be okay, that's a warning sign that we're in that space of attachment. Attachment is almost like a residue that kind of pulls us into some sort of dependence on someone else or a situation. When that is okay, I am okay. And Patanjali is saying hey, actually, just be okay. One thing you may have noticed in this sutra is that the scholars are talking about objects that are either right here or they're imagined. They're real or they're seen or heard about. And what this is kind of, I think, a nod to is, if you will imagine, okay, say you're walking in your kitchen and you see your friend eating ice cream. Well, that's going to probably inspire that attachment craving that we have within us, right? Because it's right there in front of us and we want it. So that's one kind of craving. But the other kind of craving is when you're just walking around and you imagine ice cream, and the kind of the little thought bubble of I want ice cream seems to arise from nowhere. So I think what this points to is that, how sometimes we can sit in meditation or sometimes we're walking through the forest and our mind is calm and we don't have those cravings. After a yoga practice, oftentimes those cravings are less. We're kind of calm, we're settled, and we don't need to run after all of those things we usually desire. So in that state, even though in that moment after my yoga practice or in my walk in the woods, those cravings aren't activated, it doesn't mean they're not there, right? So just because I'm calm in the moment doesn't mean that I'm free from craving, although it's good to be calm in the moment, right? But I could still have those little percolating desires. Immediately after I've had my cup of coffee, my mind might feel calm and I might feel craving free. I'm like, I am not attached at all. Does that mean I'm not really attached? No, it just means in this moment that attachment isn't activated. So someone who is a true master wouldn't have cravings, sure, when they've meditated, when they're calm, but anytime, even when someone with ice cream walks by in front of them, even in the morning when I really want coffee, they would be calm and cool and collected. The seeds of those attachments are gone. All right, everybody, just to sum up this exploration, in this video, we looked at the first tools that Patanjali offers us for restraining the little hamsters, those fluctuations of our mind. Patanjali says it's through practice and non-attachment. Practice means it's for a long time, consistently, everybody. You're always trying to be aware of it, right? And you do it with a full-heartedness, right? We bring ourselves to it. Dispassion or non-attachment means that we let go of our cravings. So whether that's a craving for the practice to go a certain way, or it's a craving for coffee, or a craving for a relationship, or for a particular job, to be somewhere else, to be in the past, all of those stories and those cravings pull us out of the present moment and pull us out of our sense of presence and sense of self. So you can go ahead and explore these in your own life. Notice when the hamsters are running amok. See if you can come back to center. And as Patanjali would invite, this is a consistent practice, not just for the mat, but all the time. It's an invitation to be more aware of how we are showing up in the world. So there you have it. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe for more videos. I'd love to hear from you. Please respond in the comments. I'd love to hear how these videos are working for you, what your understanding of practice and non-attachment are. I'd love to hear what you think about this subject as well. See you on the mat.